Stay tuned after the episode to hear our latest edition of And Then What?
Hi, Fitz. Happy Monday.
It's a Monday, even though it's being released on a Friday. But today is Monday. It's going swimmingly. I'll leave it at that.
Maybe today is not the best day for this question, but I'm curious if you've always thought of yourself as a creative person. Maybe you don't today, but when you were younger, when you were a kid, like what did creativity look like for you?
I definitely think of myself as a creative person. And I think part of it is that I think humans at large everybody, I believe, has a creative bone in them. Like on some level, I think sometimes the world takes it out of us, or it's hard, we're put in situations where it's harder to live with that. And I feel really fortunate that I was that way, because as a kid, I didn't necessarily think of myself as creative. Like it was just what I was interested in. I just was always drawn to that kind of thing, whether it was music, whether it was writing, whether it was drawing. That was just who I was as a person.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because I feel like I also probably would have said yes as a younger person. Even back to elementary school, I remember wanting to be a writer. But, I think sometime around college, those like love for making things kind of smacked right up against this feeling like I needed to be more practical, and it took me a long time to find a way to kind of merge those things.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting part about it, because I think that creativity is not always inherently practical. And I think that that's one of the hardest things, is finding a path through life where you get to make the creativity be the thing you need to deal with tomorrow, right? And even now, I'm like, I feel so lucky to have the job I have. But, still stuff gets in the way, even though it's my job to be creative.
This theme is what I've been thinking a lot about recently. And so I wanted to talk to Karlo. Kathy's awesome. And, what I really wanted to talk to her about was this idea of like, how do you take an idea and make it happen? And then how do you take that idea that you've made happen not just once, but do it over and over again, right? Like, how do you make something creative and turn it into something that lasts?
How do you create something that the world needs, or that like a certain segment of the world needs, when a lot of other people are telling you no one wants to see that? And I feel like that's what Kathy's done. Kathy Karlo is the executive director of No Man's Land Film Festival, the first all-women and genderqueer adventure film festival. It is an incredible event. Kathy herself is an incredible climber who's been in her community and been a great voice in it for a long time. And the festival has grown from this do-it-yourself project to a huge event with the flagship festival in Denver that has more than 150 screenings across the country.
Yeah, and with the festival coming up right around the corner on March 7th, we thought it would be a perfect time to make Kathy sit down and reflect on her experience with No Man's Land and what it takes to cast off into the unknown.
I'm Fitz Cahall.
I'm Lauren Delane Miller.
And you're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries.
Kathy, I want to start back in 2015. You're living in Brooklyn. You've just started climbing. Who were you then? What did your life look like? How did you end up making the move out west?
I don't know. I mean, I was pretty like one-dimensional. I had found climbing, and I was living in New York City, and everyone says it's such a funny place to live, like to become a climber. And basically climbing was all I thought about when I wasn't forced to think about other things. So I was just kind of like a maniac, taking jobs where I could. Like I nannied when I lived in Brooklyn, and I worked at just gear shops. And then I started doing like a little bit of freelance writing and that sort of thing. I was kind of all in. So one of my housemates was a videographer, and he's not an outdoor person, but he wanted to do a short film. And so I put everything I owned on the curb and I donated everything. And I got in my Honda and I drove out west and we met in Indian Creek and he shot this short film. I helped him produce it and wrote and narrated and stuff like that. And so, those were the early days when there just weren't as many films about women who weren't like, the sidekick or just like an idea in the background. And so it actually wound up getting accepted into the Film Fest in 2016. And so I actually got to go to the Carbondale flagship festival in 2016. And so that was my introduction to the film world. I mean, I didn't really know anybody or anything. And then 1 year later, I was the film festival's first hire. And I was brought on as the tour director. And I was still just a couple years into climbing. So I was like so bright and starry eyed. And I was like, this is amazing.
So the festival was still pretty new then. What did those early years look like? What do you miss about that period?
The first year before I was brought onto the Film Fest team, I mean, Aisha had scoured the internet just looking for any films that were not just like a pretty woman and a nice sunset backdrop, like she wanted to see like women like cursing and getting dirty and like doing the thing and like in the shit. And I mean, I think we had like 10 films or something like that the first year, like 10 what we thought were quality films. I mean, it was just such a scrappy DIY kind of like initiative. Like we would fly in guests, and because we were in Carbondale, it's like 3 hours either which way to go to like Denver or Grand Junction. And like Aisha's dad was like driving to like Grand Junction and picking up like, piling like 4 or 5 guests in the car to bring them back to Carbondale. I mean, we didn't book a hotel. I think we just like reached out to locals and we're like, hey, do you want to let this filmmaker crash on your floor? Like, can they sleep on your couch? Or like, can we park a van in your drive? And it was like totally acceptable. And I mean, the community vibe was it was so cool. It was pretty special to just be like, oh yeah, there's like a film festival, but like you have to bring your own chair.
I'm curious what the reception was like those first few years. How did the outdoor community respond to the presence of a festival like this?
I actually had never been to a film festival before, but I didn't have anything to compare it to. And I just remember thinking like, wow, like everyone was so happy celebrating, at the time it was just women on screen. But, fast forward like 10 years later and like I talk to people and I hear some of the feedback and it's kind of the same thing. They're just like, wow, I've never seen so many women in one place feel so comfortable and at ease and joyful. And so, I mean, that vibe hasn't changed very much.
That's awesome. And so right now, No Man's Land is gearing up for the 11th year of the festival. How does that feel? Like when you started in this role, could you envision what the festival would look like at this point?
Not even a little bit. I had no idea. I took the basic structure that I had been given, and then just tried to like add more bells and whistles to it as I went and kept asking myself questions. Like we had never had interpreters before 2020. I remember just like asking myself like, no, like how do deaf people go to film festivals? And I was just like, I don't know if they do. And I was like, what a crazy thing. And I was just like, well, we're going to make it happen. I mean, we had no sponsors. We didn't have a single sponsor until 2022. Like we had just been winging it. And so I was like, okay, like, cool. I'm going to reach out. And I mean, I felt kind of terrible about it, but I was just like, hey, can you like come and interpret these panels that we're doing and we'll give you free ticket, and now to be at a point where we're paying people equitable rates and meeting them at their asking rate. And it feels really good. Last year we had for the first time an audio descriptor. I had never even heard of an audio descriptor before at a film event. And most people hadn't either. She had to like stand up on the stage and explain to the audience what her job was. But like, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't have dreamt it up. It just kind of like it slowly evolves.
The festival started as a place for women, but the tent has grown. And how did that evolution come about?
In 2020, we revamped the mission statement to not just be women-centric, but women and LGBTQ community. And so my joke is I love a good acronym. So I'm like ABCD, anyone but cis dudes on the screen. And so if you were a trans woman, if you were a trans masculine person, genderqueer, non-binary, like we wanted to include those people in the film programming. But like even in 2026, if you look at our programming and look at these stats, like it's still heavily women centered. And I mean, it makes sense. That's what we were founded on. Like that was like the foundation of the festival to begin with. But like, once we started like opening the door and opening that invitation, like, hey, we're also, we also want films about queer people. It doesn't matter if you identify as a man or a woman.
2020 was a difficult year for many people for many reasons, but especially for gathering in person. How did the pandemic change things for you in the festival?
So we skipped 2021 and I was kind of like, ooh, like what's the world going to be like for outdoor industry events? And I remember I had just gotten off the phone with our program director and I told her, I was like, I think we do this year and then we call it. Like, I think I'm going to turn the lights off. I was like, it's a lot of work. I was like, no one's getting paid. It was a hard conversation. It was really tough. And she cried, I cried. And then I literally got on the phone with a brand and they were just like, we're in. And I was like, oh, wow. And I think when someone sees the value in something, like it was really validating, obviously, and it made us feel like we were worth it. And we knew it, but it's like we really felt it. And so we booked the Denver Art Museum that year. We brought it to a new location. And the art museum, if you've ever been there, I mean, it's an art museum. It's like very grown up, just, these beautiful red velvet seats and is like very classically like film festival theater. And I remember Aisha and I were in the lobby and we're just watching. I mean, people were buying tickets like actively, like as we were there at the event and just like hitting that like sold out show for the first time, just like having already been in Denver one year, but like getting to come back to Denver and getting to come back like full force, with like financial backing, like making it all possible, paying everybody, all the people who are coming out to work, like paying everyone their worth. And like, I think we had 20 speakers that year. Like it was just the best. Yeah. It really made me feel like, I was like, oh, I think we're going to make it.
When we come back from this break, we'll talk to Kathy about how she's getting ready for this year's festival, what's changed, and what's keeping her psyched.
For over 40 years, Darn Tough has been making socks in Vermont from yarn sourced from America and around the world. They pride themselves on using merino wool to create a durable sock, and they back it up with an unconditional guarantee for life. I'm here to tell you that I break things, I destroy things, and so far, my Darn Tough socks are going strong. I've been putting them through the paces recently. I'm halfway through the training for a marathon, but I've kind of just been wearing them everywhere, and I dig them. They have a variety of styles and different cushioning patterns to fit your preference. It's pretty sweet. So whether it's thin or kind of a little thicker, longer, you can find the sock that works for you. Darn Tough is offering free shipping of any order to Diaries listeners. Use the code DIRTBAG at checkout. We'll put the link in the show note or visit darntough.com to find your new favorite pair of socks. Your feet deserve it. Thanks to Darn Tough for supporting the show. I do destroy stuff. That is not a joke. Everybody hikes. No matter what sport you're doing out there, you're going to do a little hiking. It's awesome. Moving through the woods, spending time on the trail with a friend, with a family member, even a new friend. Oboz Footwear knows nothing in the world unifies the human-nature connection more than the shared love of hiking. Oboz set up camp in the legendary hiking and backpacking hub of Bozeman, Montana. With millions of acres of peaks, valleys, rivers, and the greater Yellowstone ecosystem in their backyard, Oboz has made the most out of its natural R&D lab. They create footwear that delivers unmatched fit, unrivaled feel, and exceptional performance to give you the tools you need to get out there and really love hiking. To find your next pair of footwear, check out obozfootwear.com/lovehiking. Thanks, Oboz, for supporting the show. All right, this year is action-packed with me. There's a ton of travel. One of my favorite parts about traveling is I enjoy the food wherever I am. I eat what I'm served. But that said, I know I need to take care of myself, so Kachava's been my little extra super tool. I just got back from Japan. I brought it, had Kachava every single day as sort of a supplement to keep me full. We were out in the mountains, moving around, traveling, exploring, sometimes big runs in the city. Basically, it helps me balance my nutritional needs. Kachava's whole body meal shake keeps your body and mind nourished all day. With 2 scoops of Kachava, you get 85 plus superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. And with vitamin C and zinc and probiotics, I'm giving my immune system a little extra nourishment as I travel, which we all know we need. You can try Kachava risk-free with their Love It guarantee. Whatever your goal is this year, stick with it. Goals are good. Go to kachava.com and use the code DIARIES for 15% off. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com, code DIARIES for 15% off.
I wonder if for you going into this year, there's a moment you look forward to as like this is why we do this type of moment.
I'm in the this is why we're here phase of it right now. I mean, all the big major tasks are done. Most of the small tasks are done. Posters are hung. Programming's finished. Everybody's been contacted like 17 times. And I'm just like watching, like, the posts online go out and the newsletters go out and people are reaching out like, hey, this looks awesome. And it feels good to like sit in that and bask in that a little bit. And so the next 2.5 weeks for me is kind of just like maintaining all the things. I think in the beginning stages, like in the first couple months, like in November, December, January, there isn't a lot of that because it's so far out. People aren't thinking about what they're going to do next weekend, let alone a couple months in advance. And so now it's like getting a little bit closer and people are getting really excited and they're excited to tell you. They're like, hey, I'm flying in from this place or I want to come volunteer. And that's the whole point, right? It's just like gathering like a bunch of really stoked human beings who are like-minded and just want to be around community and like celebrate the things that really matter. And so I'm literally like in that moment now and it feels, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to watch happen in real time.
I wonder too if your idea of like why film is such an important medium has evolved over your time working on the festival.
I mean, storytelling overall, right? It's like everything that goes behind it, the producing and the writing and all of it. It's so much work. It's so much effort to put together a thought or a message that you want to put out. And the scary thing about any kind of medium, writing, filmmaking, like you have one opportunity to put that, into words, onto the screen, give it visual and like express that. And so you have one chance to like really fine tune that message. And I think when you're working with visuals, that just kind of enhances the message even more, which makes it more powerful. It makes it really sit with people too.
So one of the things that you've done with No Man's Land is create this kind of unique space for mentorship, right? You've got these seasoned like industry professionals and new filmmakers. They can come together. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the intention behind that, how you create that kind of space where people can make these, professional connections, creative connections, and get some of that mentorship in this industry.
I mean, I think a big part of the flagship festival, like a lot of where the magic happens, is just like bringing so many amazing people out from just like all corners of the country and sometimes Canada. And what's cool, like I've been to other events where like people rein in just like some of these big names and they're sitting on these panels and the audience, like, they can kind of engage and interact like during the panel time and ask questions. But like I've seen it happen where maybe people don't feel as like empowered to like strike up a conversation with that like athlete or filmmaker outside of the stage time. But at flagship, I don't know, everybody just kind of like feels equal, if that makes sense. Like it's not like, oh, you're of this status, like I can't just like introduce myself and have a conversation. And people, it's the way that everybody engages like outside of the panel time, the speaker series. And I've seen a lot of really cool connections. It's pretty rad. And I mean, outside of that mentorship, we just worked out a partnership with Beyond Boundaries, and they are funding our female and non-binary filmmaker grant. And what's really cool about and different about this filmmaker grant this year is they're not just providing funds for the recipient, but they also provide their services. And so like a lot of mentorship through that grant and that program, which we've never been able to offer before. And so I think that's really special.
How have you been thinking about this present moment? I mean, since you've been involved in the festival, our political climate has changed so much. It feels like whiplash in a lot of ways, right?
I mean, on the one hand, I see it impacting it in a way, just like in terms of funding, like we work with so many colleges and universities and these institutions. They're like, we love this and we love showing the films every year, but they're like, we have no money for it. Or like, we're not allowed to do anything DEI focused right now. Obviously, like pretty hard to see, but like the thing is people are really committed. And so like, yeah, maybe they can't host it at the university, but like maybe they're like, hey, this other like venue or theater in town, like if we partner with them and they host the event and we can be a part of it, and like bring it to our community. So I guess I see a lot of rallying, and so that's been really cool. I mean, like things obviously like the energy, like things are just so much more emotionally charged, but I think like at first it feels like very doom and gloom, especially if you're just like living on the internet, which like flagship season, I definitely live on the internet. definitely not. It's not good for anyone's mental health. But when you live in that online space a little bit too, it's so easy to just feel like it is absolutely doomed. But then when you have like a No Man's Land event and like a day or two that's dedicated to, just like celebrating and like honoring queer community and women and all of that, it's kind of like the reminder you need. Like, oh yeah, when I go to these places in person and I get to be around community, I think we all realize like it's not, I mean, it's bad, but it's not as bad, I think, because there's some solidarity there. And I think that's the power of being in a room, in a space with like-minded people. Because I remember last year I was like, just kind of like coaching through like, some of our opening speakers, like the purpose of the event is to give people hope. I just feel like we're growing this like really strong, loyal community, and like everything that they're seeing and experiencing at the event, they're taking out with them into the real world, into the rest of their lives, and like living what our mission is like every day, and most of them already are, but it's like, it's so easy to get burnt out, like I said, in that just like everything's fucked mindset. I mean, I get burnt out all the time, but then I see like one thing or I hear like, one person speak on it and I'm like, oh, like that's really fucking cool. And that's all it takes sometimes, because the biggest lie we tell ourselves is like we're alone and feeling the way that we feel. And it's like, no, but someone else feels that way and they're talking about it. And so like, yeah, I just think that ripple effect, I guess that's what I think about when I think about like the film fest in a decade, is like that ripple effect is just going to keep getting bigger.
What's something that you're really looking forward to this year?
The tagline, it's like, we're not your average film festival. And sometimes I'm just like, yeah, like come to our fest. We'll give you vibrators and hook you up with ramen. Like, dude, I bought like $500 worth of body glitter last year. I was like, is this stupid? And
wait, okay, tell us a little bit more about this vibrator sponsorship. How did that come about?
So last year was the first time that we did that. And like people were psyched. But like the feedback, I mean, just the commentary, it was so good. Like we had this older woman and she comes up and she's like, can I take 5 of these? And we're like, yeah, take as many as you want. She's like, great. And she's like, they're for my daughters. And like, we didn't ask any questions, but I was like, yeah, way to be sex positive, And then there were some women, I mean, these are like outdoor industry CEOs. They flew in from like other cities, Phoenix and LA. And so they had their suitcases with them. And at the end of the night, I mean, we had built this like tower of box vibrate, and they're just like pulling them into their suitcases on their way out.
Kathy, what has this kind of whole experience with the festival taught you or shown you about the power of creating things?
If you think about everything that exists in the world ever, like everything's just kind of one carbon copy after another. It's like of course there's like 1,000 other film festivals, and then they get super niche, and of course they're outdoor film festivals, and of course we're all structured so similarly and also have our own unique thing. But it's like with anything in life, like if you want to start something on your own, be it a film fest or a podcast or write a book, it's like, okay, like this has been done before. Like, what do you do to make it stand out and make it different? And like, luckily we already had that foundation kind of built in. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, yeah, it's a film festival, and like the meat and the potato, like it's films, of course. And like, yes, other festivals have speakers, but it's like, we try to be so intentional with the speakers. I mean, like over the years, like, yes, you want like a big name or two, of course, they draw a crowd, but like, man, it's so cool to like find these up and coming athletes and filmmakers, and you're like, wow, like nobody knows who you are, but like you're gonna be really big, and like just kind of like recognizing that and giving them that platform. And then you get these like pretty famous creators in the room with these like up and coming, like emerging athletes and filmmakers and whatnot. And I don't know, it's just like, it's really magical, I guess. So you can follow the guideline and the structure and do the research and like, go to a million fests and be like, this is what we want to mirror it after. But like, I think ultimately you have to like make it your own.
Thank you, Kathy, for sharing your story. The No Man's Land Flagship Festival is on March 7th in Denver, Colorado. Tickets are available online now. If you can't make it to Denver, find or book a screening in your city by going to nomanslandfilmfestival.org or check out the films and speakers online throughout the month of March. Our stories come from friends and from friends of friends and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or a story lead, please give us a shout. You can email us at editor@ducktapesandbeer. As always, this show is powered by the community. by Diaries Plus members. They make it possible so that everyone can listen, that everyone can be connected and enjoy this together. So thank you. If you haven't, please consider being part of the community that powers this show. Link is in the show notes. Music today from Holly Hiles and Sam Fang. Tracks are courtesy of the artists or Track Club. Jacob Bain and Nis Cotto composed our theme song. You can find the artists at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. This episode was produced by Lauren Delani Miller with additional production help from Evan Phillips and Becca Cahal. Becca Cahal is our executive producer. I'm Fitz, and you've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to And Then What, the segment where we break down the headlines and figure out what the hell's happened since then. Hey everyone, we started the And Then What series to cover some of the threats, the landscapes we have a shared love for. And all of you who have been listening, and it's a lot of you, we're continually impressed by that, you've taken action, and it's incredible. Today, we have some good news for you. I know, crazy, right? Good news. At the end of 2024, we shared the story of Cochimo and the broader Chilean region of Patagonia, Puchiguin, and the efforts of locals to protect one of the world's truly incredible places. It's often referred to as the Yosemite of South America. Locals down there like to think of Yosemite as the Cochimo of North America. Either way, it helps paint a picture. It's an incredible place. When 330,000 acres went up for sale for $150 million at Christie's Real Estate, the crew at Conservation Puchiguin had a wild thought. Could we buy it and turn it into a park and protect it permanently? Now, 2 years later, guess what? They did it. We sat down with Brady Robinson of the Freya Foundation, who you may remember from the original broadcast, to get the update. Incredible things are possible when we come together, listen to each other, and then make it happen.
The last time we talked, Brady, I think it was late 2024, the price had been set for this spectacular piece of land in Chilean Patagonia, Puchiguin. 300,000 acres, includes the Cochimo Valley, this huge area. I mean, how do you even start to fundraise for something like this? The numbers just are so big.
So in late 2024, we had a purchase agreement for the purchase price of $63 million, and we had a few kind of anchor donors in, but we had a long, long ways to go. We just fully committed. And the coalition, it was incredible. It was Freya Foundation, Pueblo Patagonia, the local Chileans leading things, the Weiss Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, both their Chile team and their international team, and then Patagonia Inc. And we all just started working and meeting as a group, and we raised a bunch of money. As of today, we're at over $82 million and very close to our original goal of $88 million. And that included the purchase price of $63 million and about $25 million of project costs and a $12 million endowment to help ensure that this project is funded and protected into perpetuity. I mean, it feels great. And there's like an anatomy to, like, if you're in a nonprofit and you're kind of doing things the normal way, there's an anatomy to these big capital campaigns. You retain consultants and they prepare a feasibility study and they carefully test all the donors and they go through all the, we did none of that. This was like total YOLO, go for it. The answer to how is yes, here we go, we're going. And everybody we worked with at Nature Conservancy said, we've never been part of anything like this before. To go from within 3 years, basically, of it being listed on Christie's for $150 million and having no coalition, to building a coalition, negotiating, figuring out how to work together, incorporating a new entity to hold title to the property, buying it, and now it's held by Fundación Conserva Puchiguin. It was just an incredible adventure. And when I go back and look at some of the briefing documents from 3 years ago, we had no idea. We had no clue we were going to be able to pull this off.
I wanted to ask you about what this whole kind of experience has taught you about the value of working with local communities, because like you mentioned, you have some of these huge businesses and foundations on one side, and then on the other side you've got a group of Chilean locals who just love this place and want to see it protected. What have you learned about how those huge organizations and local communities, grassroots level, can like come together and make such a cool partnership?
Well, first of all, these are exceptional people. You know, the leaders in Pueblo Patagonia. So they're bright, capable, incredible people. Andres, Rodrigo, Jose, Josefina. You know, they were small NGO that was very scrappy and grassroots activists preventing bad things from happening, preventing real estate developments, preventing at least 2 hydroelectric dams. I learned what little NGOs and local grassroots organizations are good at and what big NGOs can be good at. And sometimes it's hard for one side to see the value in the other because they're coming at things from very different perspectives. Coalition work is slower sometimes, and building trust takes time. I mean, these all sound like platitudes, but they're all true. You know, if you can imagine, you know, a little NGO, what the first meetings with the Nature Conservancy were like. I mean, there's just a lot of, they've all heard about things about each other. There's a lot of trust to be built. I mean, it took a few years, and we did it together. And I think some people at the Nature Conservancy said that they think the way that they do their work will change as a function of this project. So there was something about this project in this place that was so compelling that I think brought out the best in everyone. And I also think it was just clear that we needed each other. When there's something really exciting that gets everybody fired up and that's bigger than themselves, it brings out the best in us.
I'm curious to hear more about what some of those specifics are, because I feel like it can feel a little overwhelming, you know, for listeners who might be in a place trying to protect a place that they love, that's in their local community, and it feels kind of intimidating, you know, to feel like, what do we bring to the table? We don't have that sort of money. We don't have that sort of, you know, human power.
Well, what locals bring to the table is passion and commitment. They stood up to protect this place not as a career choice, but as a moral and lifestyle choice. You know, anyone listening, that is what you bring to the table. That's one thing you can bring to the table if there's a place that you know and are passionate about that you want to protect. You know, we had donors from $100 up to well over $15 million, individual donors. And sometimes people say, well, why? How could I have made a difference, you know, in light of people giving away that kind of money that I can only dream of? And to that, I'd say this. The Pueblo Patagonia has been around for over 10 years, and they lived on about $100,000 a year or less. And so the only reason that there is a project is because they were there getting grassroots support from people giving $100 gifts. And it hadn't been for the people that had been supporting them financially, there'd be a hydroelectric dam in the project area right now under construction, maybe flooding as we speak. There would most likely be a real estate development in Cochimo Valley proper, maybe with a road. I mean, it's like, it almost happened. And so I'd say grassroots activism, grassroots philanthropy, people giving relatively small amounts to organizations that they believe in. This couldn't happen without that. And that created an environment in which the bigger donors could come in and put the kind of money on the table that allowed us to purchase it and take it out of play. I think the other thing that's been really interesting to see is, you know, Doug and Chris Tompkins loom large in the history of conservation in Chilean Patagonia, of course. And this, a project like this never would have happened without them and without their example. And yet this was different. There were obviously American donors behind this, but there were also a lot of Chilean donors, and there were Chileans negotiating. You know, Jose Claro did not come up as a professional conservationist. He's from Chile. He's the one who negotiated this deal with Roberto Hageman. He's been in the national news. You know, a lot of the leaders who've been associated with this are like minor celebrities in Chile now, and I think it's changed the national narrative that conservation can come out of grassroots efforts led by Chileans. It's not necessarily something that happens when wealthy North Americans who are fascinated with the mystique of Patagonia come in, and this was different.
What happens now?
Well, we're in transition. There's plenty of work to do, but to our credit, we took a pause and took a moment to celebrate. And now it's the next chapter. Fundación Conserva Puigdegín holds title. The long-term plan is for 80% or more of it to be donated to the state of Chile as a national park within the next 7 years. And 20% of it will remain held by Fundación Conserva Puigdegín and have a conservation easement on it, have the equivalent of a nature sanctuary, basically have different levels of conservation protection on it, but be held by the nonprofit foundation to allow flexibility in management and also in the financing of the project. There's going to be infrastructure built out. We're right now in the middle of the high season. And so, everything's a little bit in flux, and we are changing gears from, fundraising and driving to the closing table to now thinking about long-term sustainability, infrastructure, management, and our financial model. There's a lot to do.
If listeners are still really excited to get involved and to help and to be involved in some way in the continued kind of protection of this place, what would you direct them to?
I think in the coming years, there's going to be more and more trails and infrastructure built out. And I would hope that Cochamo and the surrounding areas becomes part of the kind of known Patagonia trekking circuit. Mm-hmm. There's something called the Horseshoe that I did with my daughter. It's a 7-day trek that we ended in the Cochamo Valley. It was incredible. It was breathtaking. And so while Torres de Paine is great, there's also incredible longer treks and adventures to be had in this region. And the second thing I'd say is, we're working on climbing management. Right now, there's not a whole lot of information out there about the climbing, and I think that'll change in the coming year or two. So there's going to be need for, future visitors to help support the ongoing stewardship of climbing access trails and infrastructure, and also just to come with their very best Leave No Trace principles, well practiced and in hand. If people want to support this project, there's absolutely still a need for additional financial support in both operations and some additional strategic land acquisitions. They can go to Conserva Puigdegín, the Conserva Puigdegín website, and learn more about ways to donate and to support the project.
We're posting these pieces on our website, dirtbagdiaries.com, in case you want to share. And then what? Thanks to Diaries Plus members for making this reporting possible. Links are on our website and in the recent show notes. Thank you for caring about public lands.